What is up, guys? It is Space Monk here. Today I'm going to be teaching you about how to recognize the Antichrist, that which is against God, within. More from Phoenix Journal number 27. Monitor your thoughts, words, deeds, and actions for the following clues. 1. Inferiority or superiority thoughts and feelings. Feelings of inferiority or superiority over others will most often manifest as a two-edged sword, meaning both feelings may exist simultaneously. For example, one who feels inferior, perhaps in his performance of some action or deed, may feel inferior because he has failed to be superior in his own eyes. Somewhere within his altered ego exists the Antichrist, setting for him levels of performance perhaps beyond his current capabilities. He then will fight for the rightful superiority he is given to believe that he has over others and thus continues to set himself up for failure in his own eyes. This is where the term competition, defined as striving against another or others for some object, has been distorted in society in such a way where one's personal worth as a human being is measured against his performance against others, rather than perceiving his personal best or perfecting his personal best, which is striving in personal ability beyond self-imposed limits. And so it goes that one who is chided by the Antichrist within to feel superior to others will draw from his feelings of not wanting to be inferior, which oftentimes translates to him as rejection of his beingness and unworthiness. This is where fear enters the picture and brings us to our next point. Number 2, the Antichrist robs you of the now or present moment. It is very simple how this is done. The Antichrist keeps your altered ego in past guilt orientation or future fear orientation. This is how your reality manifestation abilities are controlled. As you wallow around in your past, reliving experiences with regret and self-pity, you cannot work in the present moment to change or create more desirable circumstances. This is why many of you may have heard of the great wisdom of forgiveness and release of all past emotional and physical thoughts, words, and deeds. One must forgive self and all others. Remember that this does not mean that you don't garner the wisdom of knowledge and truth from the lessons of the experience, because that is why you created the experience in the first place, to grow in your awareness of the truth. The same rule about past orientation is true for those who spend countless hours in reliving pleasant past memories at the expense of living in and creating the now. A rather appropriate cliche along this line says, "It's all right to look back, just don't stare." Now, future fear orientation is a big stumbling block for most all humanity. Fear in itself is a great separator of the human creature from his creator. Fear is the biggest tool of the Antichrist within. Since the highest command of the creation is to achieve the wisdom of knowledge, inasmuch as this will enable you to wisely follow all the laws of the creation, then it stands to reason that recognizing the truth in all things, including your immortal connection with God, will vanquish from your being any fear of some future experience, since you, as an immortal soul God fragment, are the master of your destiny. You see, fear paralyzes the senses and only can manifest within the being if he sees himself as separate from his creator rather than the fragment of the one. It is this illusion of being separate from the one that has trapped humans within the false bondage of fear. If one recognizes the truth and is willing to see the manifested illusion as it really is, one will see the natural balance and inner peace that is achieved by trusting the Father within and wisely following the laws of balance given by God and the creation. This now brings us to the point of remembering and understanding the law of one. All beings and creations are equal in the reflection of God, only each is different in abilities, talents, and beingness as an expression of the one. You see, page. You see, there cannot exist any separation. All come from the one great source of all, the creation, and all will return to our source, the one. Humans exist as individual fragments of the whole, a fragment of, and if you will, seeded with all unlimited potential of God awareness and wisdom. When we love the essence of spirit within, all there is no longer any illusion of separation. Excuse me. Let's try that again. There cannot exist any separation. All come from the one great source of all, the creation, and all will return to our source, the one. Humans exist as individual fragments of the whole, a fragment of, and, if you will, seeded with all unlimited potential of God awareness and wisdom. When we love the essence of spirit within all, there is no longer any illusion of separation. We are simply honoring God within ourselves and all others. We no longer are separated by our fears and unworthiness. We are God's expressions of life. We are the spirit of life itself. 3. The Antichrist tells you it's not your fault. For example, it is not your fault that your husband is an alcoholic and beats you, or that your parents abandoned you, or that you were fired from your job, or that your government leaders are corrupt, or that we have gone to war, and on and on and on. What the Antichrist within is actually telling you is that you are not responsible for the experience in your manifested reality. This false belief causes you to cast blame on another or others and not take personal responsibility for you creating the manifested experience through the influence of the Antichrist within you. Ones will oftentimes argue with this truth and say, well, I cannot control the free will of another who chooses to be angry with me or steal from me. How can I be responsible for the behavior or actions of another? It is true you are not responsible for the free will behavior of another. Excuse me. But you are responsible for buying into their games and making yourself a victim to it. You choose how you will respond to all circumstances. Remember the law of one? The Antichrist within them is the same Antichrist that you choose to allow to exist within you. The Antichrist is looking for a place to reflect itself, and you choose whether or not you will reflect back the Antichrist or whether you will recognize the trap and instead reflect back the divine love of the Father within, which therefore leaves the Antichrist nowhere to roost within your temple of God. Here is a portion of the most wondrous prayer by Aten, which is helpful to remember in your daily communion with God and in times when you feel you could be lured into the Antichrist drama of another. Father, let me always allow your will to manifest through me, that I stand in judgment of no man, and yet wisely judge that which is given in action against your holy presence. Aten. Oh yes, I hear you. If your higher self is God, Aten, then how can you speak and say how to speak to God? Simple, because I therefore know that which God hears and honors, just as should you. Let us put it this way. If the message of the horse comes directly from that horse's mouth, you see, whether you are aware of it or not, you are unconsciously manifesting all within your scope of reality, mostly with your altered ego. The beautiful thing about this truth is that when it is realized, one can become a conscious creator of a truly balanced manifested experience by surrendering his alter ego to the loving divine God within him, and so thereby balancing all of his creation within the laws of God and the creation. 4. The Antichrist encourages self-punishment. Of course, you know by now self-punishment is encouraged for past sins, errors, which is really your altered ego, unworthiness, inferiority, superiority, which we discussed earlier, expressing itself in the following ways: criticism of self and others, greed, lust, jealousy, envy, guilt, shame, self-doubt, depression, hopelessness, anger, hatred, resentment, impatience, which leads to frustration, illness, and disease, which leads to death which leads to the death wish of the body. Self-punishment is the effect of the cause of believing the lies of the Antichrist. This may continue lifetime after lifetime. The poor immortal soul self-locked into the wheel of reincarnations. Aten, oh yes, there is, and if you believe otherwise, so be it, for it is you who are the misinformed. Reincarnation does not necessarily mean that you that you return to this placement even, but if you do not believe in reincarnation, re-experience of the soul manifestation somewhere, then by deductions taken further, you do not believe in God's heavenly realms either. You cannot have one without the other, and because this is such a powerful truth, it was deliberately removed from the books you as humans would call your holy books in the form of the Holy Bible as you label it. The fact remains in the ancient teachings, and you ones this day are facing an enemy who does know of life experience after this one and knows this is but a passing experience and seeks to punish himself for his perceived sins of the past in hopes of redeeming himself to his Creator God. If he has just understood the power and importance of forgiveness and release of his past and adhering to the laws set forth by God in the creation, he would be free of his bondage in an instant. Yes, God created cause and effect so that each soul could grow in his awareness and become empowered with the true responsibility he has of his thoughts, words, deeds, and actions. In other words, so that he could recognize his power and the importance of responsible God-balanced manifestation. Number 5, the Antichrist encourages one to break the laws of God and the creation, given forth for balance. For example, the law of God which says, "Thou shalt not kill." This means in your thoughts as well as your deeds. You shall not wish death upon another human being of God. This rule does not mean you cannot defend yourself if your life is threatened, because that is suicide and also against the laws of God. This also means that by becoming pregnant, which is being the vehicle of one of God's new creations, and having an abortion because of your irresponsible sexual behavior, it is still murder any way you look at it. Remember, personal responsibility. There are definitely many possible undesirable effects to illicit and wanton lustful sexual activity. Pregnancy and disease are two obvious results which do and have occurred more often than not. Number 6, the Antichrist rules you by your desires. Your desires for those things and possessions of the material world include not only physical manifested things of the material world, such as television, house, car, and money, but also emotional desires such as sexual conquest, marriage, children, friendships, acceptance, recognition, and worship. The Antichrist within will keep you always seeking outside yourself for the false promises of fulfillment with more, bigger, and better things. Excuse me. And the poor soul readily jumps on the treadmill of unfulfilling work to make the money he now needs to fulfill his desires. His soul pines away for something more, something just beyond his reach. If only he had more money, more prestigious job position, a bigger home, a newer car, more vacations, more, bigger, better. The false promise is never enough, and it will not fulfill the cry of the soul to recognize and connect with the immortal spark of his Creator within. So the Antichrist will tell you to forget your problems, have some fun, relax, have a few drinks, take some drugs. You deserve it and you can afford it now. And before long, the dear God fragment is shrouded in the darkness of addiction and misery. So does this mean it was wrong to have the things of the material world which he manifested? Not at all. God is abundance in all kingdoms. But the catch is, you cannot become attached to things of the material world and to your emotional desires. You are borrowing this wondrous physical body, and all the things of the manifested world will not go with you when you leave your body in whatever sort of transition you earn. It is only your immortal soul that is real in this journey to oneness within. All else is manifested illusion. However lovely and precious it remains as the props and the backdrops for the players remaining. This is just one drama of billions fed by the breath of life. Fed by the breath of life and the creation. And then again, it is really just one drama, and we are but co-creators in the play of life unfolding. So the key to releasing yourself from bondage to the material plane is to become detached from it, which is to disconnect from your attachments to things and emotional attachments as well. To become detached emotionally, one must forgive and release. See number 4. All perceived transgressions upon self and others. This is not to say you have no care or compassion or love. You absolutely do and must have unconditional love of all beings and creations of God. That is, their essence as existing as part of the One. But you must detach from all manifested illusions and emotions which weigh you down in vibration, much like wet wool garments on your body. 7. Now there's one more point to ponder, because many of you will and do ask, what difference does it make to the rest of the world if I cast out the Antichrist within me and the rest of humanity refuses to do so? It does make a difference. Because again, remember the law of one? Humanity and the creations of God are all related as part of the one. Your manifested world is a direct reflection of what exists within each of you. You each are part of the pool of mass consciousness, which means you each are responsible for your portion of the whole. For example, a comparison can be made between the pollution which exists in the air, water, and ground of this wondrous planet, and the pollution of the Antichrist which you each support within yourselves. So for each one of you who recognizes and casts out the Antichrist within, you are essentially healing a portion of the disease of mass consciousness. Excuse me. You make a big difference by committing your will to the knowledge and wisdom of truth in God's kingdom. You become a part of the solution for healing the cesspool of darkness in mass consciousness rather than remaining as part of the problem. You see, you will then carry the light of truth and wisdom of our Father within you, and others are attracted to it because it is the joy of the Spirit of life itself, and you become the vehicle for offering it to them. May your candle of love, truth, and light deliver the divine spark of understanding to all who await their call from Holy God of the light and of the creation. Amen. Well done, Chela. Well done indeed. And for you who would have more of the directed teachings and explanations of that which has been given and then corrupted by man, straight from the horse's mouth, I suggest you stay tuned. Master Isu Jesus Sanandas intends to give this Chela direct and literal instructions as to that which you call the commandments. You may be surprised to find that there may not even be 10 of them, but that is not for me. For that which you will receive will come directly from Isu, from Emmanuel Sananda Jesus, Lord Michael and Germain. You are going to witness a world in transition and transmutation, and there is rejoicing in the houses and councils of God. Amen. We know and understand that this is the information for which most of you readers long for and have awaited, but all things must flow in proper sequence, and again, I remind you, if you know not the problems and uncover the lies, you cannot recognize of the cure for the diseases which have been created to keep you blinded. I am going to ask closure of this portion following edition of Sananda's message. See forward via Tomeros F.E. Thomas. For the name itself, Thomas, is communion, twin within the light and bringer of the communication. Drew is our loving term of Druthia, bringer of strength through the teachings and gift of God. We are grateful indeed to share in the service unto man and God. These writings will be placed to print in their own volumes as we move along, but we will adhere to necessary sequence for optimum speed of acceptance and fullness of understanding. As other scribes are introduced, we shall rejoice also. The graduation into unity of purpose. Oh yes, and Dharma shouts, Hallelujah! She thinks she will get a rest. Let us not burst of her bubble. I get another funny reaction. When Little Crow was sent to tell Dharma that she would write at least 3 more volumes, some 10 volumes past, it has been laughed about greatly by one who kept saying, When are we going to have done enough? Little was their realization that God always has plans for ones who effort to limit. He makes of them the scribes so that they too can produce unlimitedness. Keep your sense of humor, Chelas, for the journey is an experience to be accepted in fullness and joy, not with thine faces long and thine spirits down. If ye walk with God of truth through this journey, it can be naught but joy. Ye must release that which is perceived as bad from thine possession of it, for it is not yours to possess. Ponder it. In love beyond the discipline, I am Aten, to close and stand aside while you take opportunity to think upon these things. Salu and Adonai. Recognizing and defining the most deadly sins of humanity. We are your hosts, Sananda, Lord Michael, Germain, and Druthia, in service to the truth and wisdom which is only of the holy light of God Aten and the creation. We come from the cosmic council of the light of God Aten, the one within all, to bring to you, our brethren, the truth that you may join in the joy of oneness, the lighted brotherhood within God's holy kingdom of light, truth, beauty, and wisdom. First, we would like to give careful clarification of our use of terms to represent God Aten. You will find that we often say Father within or refer to Aten as he, signaling male gender. This way we term our Creator in your language. This way we term our Creator in your language is not meant as a sexual gender, as you recognize same. Our Creator God Aten represents both male-female principles, if you will. There is no sexual gender differential. The spirit of life is what you may understand in limited language male-female energy representation, as are all of you. You each have chosen a body, male or female, for your experience. Only both energies are represented within each of you. Also, you will find examples used in which we will say he, which we mean as a general human term for humanity, not specific sexual gender. This we explain so that ones who are in the female physical form do not feel slighted or that we honor them less. And so also ones in the male physical form do not feel more or less than equal to female humans. All fragments of creator creation are equal in reflection regardless of what color or gender a physical form is taken. In your own minds, if you prefer to call it and refer to God Aten creation as mother, father, creator creation, then so be it. Now, we would like to bring light and understanding unto that question all of you have been struggling with, and that is, what is evil? But before you can have understanding of what is evil, we must help you understand what is God. The laws of God and creation given forth have described God as the ruler of the human races and the king of wisdom. Then this in itself implies that God is a great being of spiritual wisdom and perfection within the creation, but to confine what God is to limits of third-dimensional human language and perception alone is a mistake. Because of the limited boundaries of your plane, you have not yet developed the capability of defining a limitless being or state of being. Since our God Creator has created us, what this means is that He has fragmented Himself as the creation fragmented itself in the creation of God, in order to expand and experience more of the totality of the One. This is why God's laws, the laws of nature, the laws of balance, and the laws of the creation all exist as the same universal laws of cohesive harmony and oneness. Universal laws are the cosmic codes of unlimited creative unfoldment which allows the greatest degree of expansion and of expression of the totality of all that is. Each fragment exists as a part of Creator God, and thus as a part of the creation as well. The cosmic codes or laws are keys of logic which maintain the balanced coalescence of creative unfolding expansion of the one all that is. So, by learning to recognize that which limits your expanding creative potential, you will identify that which keeps you bound to your illusion of separation from the One. And by gaining the wisdom of knowledge of what is evil, sin, and adversary to God and creation, you will then be able to wisely move your awareness to what is your personal responsibility in the co-creation of the love of life, which is the joy of wholeness and oneness of the limitless creation. So then now, what is evil? Evil, also called Satan or adversary, is all thought and the energy it creates which is allowed or is chosen through free will to exist, which confines and limits the expression of creative unfoldment of the totality of oneness. It is that which swims against the flow of cosmic creation in order to feel itself in separation, and thus it exists only within boundaries or limits of the whole. It is self-consuming in that it seeks to dominate the whole, and because it can only dominate within its own self-imposed boundaries, it is finally consumed itself by the rushing waters of the expanding one. Now, many ones in their exuberance of finally grasping the concept that all is one will oftentimes believe that they must now be all allowing, since all are choosing experience as part of the one. We will hear one say things such as, "There is no good and bad, all is just experience, it just is. Therefore, how can I judge something such as a behavior or action to be good or bad for another when it's not my experience or right to judge another?" What we say to this is, you can allow yourselves into perpetuity, but if you do not recognize those thoughts, words, and deeds which are contrary to life and godness, how do you think you will reach His unlimited kingdoms of conscious immortality? Does this mean that by recognizing the Antichrist or adversaries that you must make yourselves the enforcers of God's laws? Not at all. God needs no enforcers. He needs only examples be set forth so that one can see a brighter, balanced, and more loving way of being. Each must begin that journey within self, and as each ignites his flame of truth and godly understanding, so too will he choose to change his thinking, behavior, and actions in order to be in balance with God in oneness. This does not mean that you will allow others to maliciously cause you harm. You must always honor self and God and defend yourself, if necessary, to protect yourself from the abuse or damage by another. You do not have to choose victimhood ever, and you must not tolerate or allow behavior directed against you or your brethren which you know is contrary to the laws of God and creation. Do you see what your gift of free will is, dear ones? It is through your experience of learning what God is not that you will therefore know what God is. We have observed, as many ones will say smugly, but God created everything, including evil. So it just is a part of our experience. Remember this carefully. God Aten created human in his image of perfection. He gave you free will, and with your free will, you have chosen to be the adversary and break every law of balance. So don't any of you ever think that you can shirk your personal responsibility because you believe God created evil. Man created evil with his own free will, and with the divine mercy of his creator, Aten, he will find his way back to the godly balance, or he will continue to remain bound in his dark cage of self-service and separation from the creative spirit of life. You see, friends, your free will is really your choice to make your will God's will, or to live according to the will of your altered ego, which seeks always to limit your spiritual understanding, and therefore to disrupt and destroy your creative potential, harmony, and balance of oneness. Ultimately, you will recognize that the only free will you have is that which is God's will, because you will have gained the wisdom of knowing that the logical balance of God's way is actually the only way to the joy of truly balanced spiritual freedom. Now, we will be defining and discussing what are the deadliest sins or errors made in your experience which keep you swimming upstream against the flow of the balance of the cosmic creative unfoldment. These sins are the tools of Satan or the adversary to keep you bound in your illusion of separation from God and the creation. Also, you are kept under his dominance through the ignorance of false belief and superstition of a false power which keeps you locked within the spiritual starvation of limited manifested reality. Number 1, pride. Pride, as defined in your dictionary: 1. An undue sense of one's own superiority, arrogance, conceit. 2. A proper sense of personal dignity and worth. 3. That of which one is justly proud. As you see by this definition, where it seems to be two different diametrically opposed types of pride. The one which is focused as sin or error to the spirit within is what is also termed as false pride. False pride in itself refers to feelings of haughty superiority and rightness versus the feeling of self-respect and honor for achieving an understanding or an act which one has diligently and honestly worked for. Now on page 54-55 of the Phoenix Journal, entitled Satan's Drummers by Jesus Sananda, Sananda is discussing at great lengths what is evil. The one who is possessed of evil, or that which is anti-God, is most self-willful. We will quote, "Healthy individuals submit themselves to the demands of their own conscience. Not so the evil ones, for in the conflict between their guilt and their will, it is the guilt that must go and the will that must win. Evil people are extraordinarily willful, determined to always have their own way, and they have a most remarkable power in the manner in which they attempt to control others. And yet, a characteristic of all great people is that they are extremely strong-willed, whether their greatness be for good or for evil. I, Jesus, as you called me, was unbending and strong-willed. Ah, but so was one named Hitler. Could it be the difference in willingness and willfulness? Mine willfulness was that of our fathers. Hitler's was that of his own. It becomes evident, doesn't it, that the one whose will of his own is threatened greatly by goodness. Wait, let's see. It becomes evident, doesn't it, that the one whose will of his own is threatened greatly by goodness? It therefore leads to the need of evil, destruction of the goodness, or that one which represents such. Thus murder is born. It is better, of course, if the evil one can cause the one of goodness to acquiesce in total submission and give through total abandonment of goodness into the hands of evil. I think your psychiatrists might label this type of behavior of self-demand narcissism, defined as 1. Excessive admiration for or fascination with oneself. 2. Psychoanal, erotic in interest in one's own body. It is not strong enough a term for evil, so let us call evil a disease of cancerous or malignant narcissism. Your church authorities have generally considered pride first among the sins. Pride goeth before the fall, and so it is. Pride is actually the same as cancerous narcissism, but I want you to realize I can also speak your hidden languages. End quote. So if one is proud, defined as one actuated by possessing or manifesting pride, arrogant, also self-respecting, 2, sense of honor and personal elation, generally followed by or by a verb in the infinitive, one is either fooling himself by false feelings of superiority over another or others, or he is simply being self-respecting by validating a worthy achievement of his own or of another. Since one can also be proud of another's achievement or action, this pride in another many times is simply the judgment that the action accomplished by the other is one which they themselves would be proud of to accomplish as well. It is supporting one's own conviction of truth, whether it truly be truth or not. For example, many parents believe that when their children are sent off to war, ostensibly, for protecting and defending their country, that even though war involves the murder of others, they, the parents, must feel proud of their sons for doing their duty for their country. Now, are they truly proud, or are they simply hiding behind their own false pride because they are terrified that their child may die? And if that were to happen for no good, honorable reason, they could not forgive themselves for being wrong and supporting their sons in the excuse me. It's a dusty garage. All right. Let's see. One is either fooling himself by false feelings. Let's see. Since one can also be proud of another's achievement or action, this pride in another many times is simply the judgment that the action accomplished by another is one which they themselves. Oh, I'm way past. They're truly proud of their own false pride because they're terrified their child may die, and if that were to happen for no good, honorable reason, they could not forgive themselves for being wrong and supporting their sons in the lie of war. Do you see? At some level, the false, prideful one knows he is wrong, but is afraid to face the perceived consequences of being discovered as mistaken, uninformed, or ignorant. He would rather hide behind the superiority feelings of false pride than live with the consequences of believing and supporting a lie, which could cause a death or dishonor of his child and make him wrong in his belief as well. When ones are continually molded as to what popular opinion must be, though not based on the facts, they become powerless puppets of evil. They no longer are able to reason for themselves because they have become apathetic and lazy and would prefer to believe all they are told from those they perceive are in the know. Thinking for themselves is an effort they choose not to take precious time from their television, sports, and soap operas to accomplish. They watch their TV and take every opinion at face value by the human images presented to them, who continually form and reinforce what their opinions must be. They adopt these opinions as their own and will fight tooth and nail any who oppose their view. This control of their minds is known at deep soul level, and the soul is in agony from this deception. False pride can only be released when one is pried from his trance of believing and seeks to know the truth and no longer fears, because he feels helpless and powerless, the consequences of his personal responsibility, which knowing the truth acknowledges and accepts. So when you say to yourself or another, I am proud of this job, well done, or I'm proud of you for a job well done, are you hiding behind the lie of a false belief and self-righteous superiority? Or are you acknowledging honest pride of self-worth and accomplishment of a truly worthy deed or action? You each must learn to know the difference, otherwise you will continually perpetuate an illusion of truth and create for yourself the victimhood which you allow to manifest because of your own stubborn ignorance. Such is the case with the truth, which our brother Otten is bringing to you in the Phoenix Journals. Many can't believe that this much evil has permeated your world and exists now right before their very eyes. We are not asking you to blindly believe these truths about your circumstances as set forth. We are waving warning flags and asking you to read carefully and reason within yourselves with the gifts of reasoning intelligence given you, with God within you, so that you can get off your couch potato assets and find the proof you need to know the truth within you, and then take back your God-given power and do something to change that which you find reprehensible and against God. We are simply presenting the facts to you as our service to God, for he promised that in the end beginning time cycle, the word of truth would go forth to all who have ears to hear and eyes to see, and it was going forth, and it is going forth. And if you are prideful and think yourself so intelligent, if you're prideful and think yourself so intelligent, technical difficulties. You're prideful and think yourself so intelligent and all-knowing, all-believing, that you could not be duped because in your opinion space aliens don't exist, and your government couldn't be involved in an evil conspiracy or this or that, then you are a fool and a tool for the Antichrist, and may our Father God Aten have mercy upon you. It is best to truly understand that it is the nature of your illusion that most everyone is exposed to and wrapped up within someone else's false illusion of truth. If you wisely learn and understand the logic behind the cosmic laws of balance given of God and the creation, you will unwrap these false illusions and claim your true God power and connection. So too will you each learn to reason out the truth within you, and ye ask for the truth and wisdom of God and creation to be given you in all circumstances set before you. So shall you receive and claim the proof and the understanding as true knowledge within you, and not as belief in that in what is the opinion of another. 2. Avarice. Avarice is basically another term for greed, defined as selfish and grasping desire for possession, especially of wealth, avarice, covetousness. Now, one who's greedy or filled with avarice is then possessed with feelings of excessive eagerness for acquisition or gain of some form of material object or wealth. They therefore are selfishly and excessively covetous and desirous of gaining something, not because they need it, but because they have to be worthy or be a winner or achieve superior status in their image of what is worthy, what is a winner, and what is superior status. It is the selfish covetousness of desiring more than one really needs of some material object, and in this time upon your placement, it is usually more money. One who is therefore possessed by his excessive greed will have many unfulfilled physical desires and will thus wish to fulfill them at whatever cost, physically or emotionally, to another or even self the acquiring of the same may be. The seeds of greed are usually planted by, at first, the overwhelming feelings of self-failure for not measuring up to these images of success and winning which are constantly produced within your various forms of media. It then becomes a feeling of deserving something without having done anything or putting in the least amount of effort personally to earn or create same. It is this desire created by your media programming that one can receive something for nothing through what is called good luck, which again implies that it is random luck and not personal power and responsibility which allows you to create that which you need. It also often means one's refuse to take personal responsibility for creating their own perceived lack or loss of material goods. It is this time frame of your history which greed is blatantly and expressly created, encouraged, and nurtured primarily by those within your justice system. Many ones who have become frustrated at perceiving themselves as the have-nots of society and who have also become the victims of their own lack of self-worth are the easy prey of attorneys who promote greed and no self-responsibility. It is no accident, dear ones, that your Western society has become the most litigious, meaning inclined to engage in lawsuit against another because of real perceived damages to self. In your entire world, your system of true justice is nearly gone, and those who nearly always benefit in every case are the attorneys from all sides of the lawsuit. It is through this narrow created system of injustice that lying, cheating, and stealing from others is par for the course and expected behavior for ones who wish to win, even if it involves the total financial and physical ruin of the ones being sued. How do you know that your true intent is when you consider suing another? Oh, let me see. How do you know what your true intent is when you consider suing another? You will first need to recognize what is your true motivation in your desire to sue. Have you truly been, whether it be unintentional or intentional, damaged? Have you recognized that you too have participated in the creation of this experience? You must confer with self and God within to determine why you choose the experience, why you chose the experience, and what must be accomplished or learned by you in making your decision to enter litigation with another. If you know that another has wronged you because of their own greed and selfish disregard, one moment, selfish disregard of feelings or property, then you, upon conferring with God within, may decide to restore to balance the wrong committed willfully against you. With the true integrity of your intent firmly established within, then God will assist to bring you the injustice which you deserve and have earned. Do you need to lie to assist God? Not at all. If you have truly been intentionally wronged, the facts will stand on their own merit of the evil perpetrated against you. There are still a handful of attorneys who truly desire to serve their brothers and intelligently utilize the system to bring justice when they know it is merited. You must trust God to bring you the assistance which you need to bring the balance of justice which you have earned. Sadly enough, on the other side of the coin, there are actually many ones who find themselves truly the innocent victims of being sued, will discover that, even though they know they have been willfully wronged and falsely accused, it is cheaper both financially and emotionally to settle with the accuser than fight for the justice that they deserve. They, the lawyers and judges trained and controlled through your ABA, American Bar Association, have created these tidy little shortcuts for you, friends. They call it business decision to allow a least amount of loss to the accused. Well, of course, the attorneys on both sides are paid in full. The one wrongfully suing wins, and the wronged one pays one way or another. It is set up this way. It saves time for the attorney. He gets a tidy sum and he saves his client money. Right? Wrong. The accused finds himself guilty of something he is not, and his only other choice is financial and emotional devastation by continuing his case which could go on for years and years and years. Integrity? Truth? We are sorry, dear ones, only winning, stealing material assets at the expense of another, and striving to save self from excessive loss of such assets are the criterion for the litigation game as set up by the Antichrist. Do you see that it is this idea that ones adopt, that they must be perceived as a winner in the eyes of your society, and they are encouraged to do so by whatever means at their disposal? With total disregard for honesty, integrity, and personal responsibility. Winning is the goal, and it is defined in a way through competitive molding that one must always strive to win at all costs, because the only other choice is being a loser, which is now defined as really being a worthless human being. Dear ones, in God's kingdom there exist only winners, as each contains a fragment of the divine perfection of God, Creator, creation. Remember, you are not in competition with any other fragment, for each has unique and individual abilities and talents given of our Father. None is more or less in reflection of importance unto God Aten. Each has unique creative potential for expanding the awareness and beauty of the constant unfoldment of God and the creation. You must recognize that when you feel competitive against another, that which is behind the illusion of competition is that you fear being unworthy in comparison to the abilities of another. How can you compare one expression of God with another? All expressions add to the unfolding discovery of the one divine self. We would now like to discuss an activity which you once called gambling. Gambling, defined in your dictionary: 1. To risk or bet something of value on the outcome of a game or chance, etc. 2. To take a risk to obtain a result. We, your brothers of God's cosmic council, would like to point out to you that for many of you, the biggest and most adventurous risk or gamble you make is when you choose to experience within the veil of forgetting, here in third-dimensional Earth plane. All other risks you may take in physical form pale to comparison next to this one, when you truly understand that you risk your soul becoming lost in the eternity of the illusion of matter, and thus also you risk the spiritual freedom and salvation of your soul when you choose to experience here. What is the gain you are gambling for? The challenge of the opportunity through manifested experience to conquer and rise above the illusion you have created of what is God and what is anti-God or adversary, to gain true unlimited God power and wisdom. You have the challenge to self. To the one all that is, of incarnating without memory of your divinity and connection with God within you. You live in the illusion of separation to journey again unto the discovery of the glory of your soul connection to the divine Holy One, all that is, Creator creation. You must know, dear ones, that God Aten and the entire cosmic lighted brotherhood rejoices when one of his own finds his way back home, through the muck and mire of illusion, to his fold of oneness within all that is. This means, dear ones, that through the desire to know self comes the recognition of God, then the recognition of unity with an all, of unity with all, and then when the recognition of the folly of the Antichrist is understood, then you can reclaim your God power, and the Antichrist no longer can seduce and take away from you the truth of your connection with God and your divinity within. You have reclaimed yourself as the spark of Godness which you are and will always have been. Oh, what joy there is in the kingdom of God. So all you gamblers out there may now be wondering about whether it be right or wrong in God's kingdom to gamble your physical assets, such as money, for the opportunity of higher gain. What be your motivation, dear one? Is it the fun of a challenge to self of the playing of the game? Is it desire to win? Is it desire to lose? Is it greed or desire for more Then you need of physical assets, which motivates you. It is a desire for status or recognition among your peers that you seek. You see, gambling or taking risk in itself is not right or wrong. It is the motivation and true intent of the one who gambles or takes a risk which defines the rightness or wrongness of the activity. And true intent can only be known by God within each one. We would say that every move or decision you make, whether it be in your relationships, in your business, home, or whatever, is in essence a gamble, since you can only weigh the outcome of gain upon what is your true intent and desire within the choice or decision. Every choice is a risk if you do not know what it is you truly desire to create. If you are fulfilled by the fun and challenge of self, of simply playing the game, and it does not become obsessive need to win or lose, then enjoy yourself. If you truly learn to monitor the intent of why you play the game of risk, whether it be business or horse racing, then you will also learn how to monitor and balance the level of success you need to manifest to keep in the playing against the degree of losses which you can afford. 3. Gluttony.